Hello there, Internet. Welcome back to Speranza. Hello there again, Internet. How is everybody? I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a different video where I just kind of go over and talk about some stuff. I've been kind of doing this like key run project thing that, I don't know, it just kind of sounded like a fun little thing to do, way to keep me engaged and continuing to enjoy this game that has brought me quite a lot of joy, to be honest. I haven't had a video game kind of hit me the way this has since I played World of Warcraft when I was a kid. And we're talking about like 20 years ago. So I just have been absolutely obsessed with this, and having these fun little projects and stuff in mind and wanting to like document them and everything as I go kind of just became a thing I wanted to do. So I wanted to take some time to make some notes about this key run thing I'm doing. So if you haven't watched the videos, I saved every key that I got while I was doing the quests on this second expedition. So I did the first expedition. I did go through that. Never really recorded anything until like the very end when I had already kind of planned all this and everything, and did the second expedition, and I went through, completed all 85 quests that are currently in the game at the point of recording, and throughout that time I did not use a single key on any of my runs whatsoever. The first thing I want to note, I have recorded and done 12 runs at the time of recording this. That does not include my history of playing the game. Realistically, I've probably done upwards of 100 key runs so far since I started playing the game. I do have nearly 700 hours in the game at this point, so I do kind of know what is going on and what to expect with these as it currently stands. So just some talking points though that I want to approach that people maybe misunderstand about keys and the way they currently function in the game. I do want to preface it by saying I do agree with the community that key runs, or keys specifically, should be buffed. They should also better reflect their rarities and things along those lines, but keys currently are not in as bad of a state as people on Reddit would lead you to believe. There are a lot of people saying like they sell their keys and things like that on Reddit posts that just don't make a whole lot of sense. But key runs are very, very efficient. So when you go to a room, you unlock the door, you're talking about a maybe 2 to 3 minute travel time. Walk into the room, pop the key, go in there, loot, which takes roughly 1 to 3 minutes, and then you've got a full inventory. It may not be amazing quality stuff, but you do have a full inventory. From that point there, you can just straight up extract. It's one of the quickest ways to completely fill your bags. There are obviously faster ways to do this, like running Stella Montis with, no weapon, whatever, and just going and doing a naked run. But that also is spawn dependent. A lot of times you're going to load into a game where something's already been looted, etc. Key runs are less likely to have already been looted, and you're more likely to come out with at least a full inventory worth of stuff, whether it may or may not be useful to you. And based on kind of like the average sale value of these, you're looking at roughly like 60,000 for the space currency, whatever the hell they call it, credits. And an average sale value of like 60,000 is not that bad. You can do a Stella run where you walk out with 100,000 or more if you take your time and you're looting just the absolute best stuff that you possibly can to sell. But either way, for a 5-minute investment, 5 to 10-minute investment, 60,000 is really, really good. So as far as efficiency goes, it is one of the most efficient things that you can do in the game, and a lot of people tend to discredit that and don't give it the credit it deserves The other thing to note is that key rooms oftentimes kind of guarantee untouched loot even when the rest of the area is already looted. So, like, what do I mean by that? You can run into, say, testing annex, right? And you can go in there, you'll see like the drawers and everything have already been looted, and the lockers have already been looted in the like back half of the building. You walk in there and you can look through a couple of things and kind of just realize, oh, this person took little to nothing and was looking for something specific, or they probably took as much as they possibly could because they were just looking to resupply. So if you do go down into testing annex and you happen to have a key, you can, check these things that have already been looted in the general vicinity, and then go down there, see that the room has not been opened, and now you've got guaranteed untouched loot where you know that nobody's taken some stuff out of there, and you're going to at least get the full amount of rewards for every container that you open. If you walk into testing annex and somebody has already looted, the drawers and the lockers in the lobby, you may only get 1 to 2 items out of every container that you open. Whereas if you go down into that key room, you're going to get, 4 to 6, the typical amount. So you are kind of guaranteeing yourself some untouched loot. The other thing to consider is that along with the efficiency side of things, like I said, it's fast in, fast out. But you do also have a guaranteed variety of useful supplies, right? So most of the time you're going to run in there, you're going to get some stuff to make some augments. You're going to make some meds out of the stuff that you're going to get. You're going to come out with, metal parts or explosive compound and things like that to make a couple of grenades. You'll get the stuff to, make some Raider hatch keys and things like that almost every single time. So you're getting like a good variety of useful supplies. I think that people seem to think that key room should have like a couple of big things rather than a very useful variety of things, and I'm not necessarily opposed to that either. I do think that would be a pretty cool change if Embark wants to go that route, just to make key runs feel more special rather than like more efficient. I do think that key runs in other games, for example, or like puzzle rooms in other games where you have to complete an objective to get something, of higher quality, is what people are used to and what people expect to see. And I think that they're not necessarily trying to change that formula or anything. I do think that it was kind of a half-baked development decision to make keys the way that they currently are. And I agree with the community that you should change that approach and make it something where you're investing your time to go into this place and you're going to walk out of it with a couple of things that are useful or like high value. You might walk out with a rare gun, might walk out with a good blueprint, like something more useful than, a light stick blueprint. Another thing that I've noticed with this is that it does tend to be like an easy battery farm. Almost every key room is going to have batteries in it, and usually a pretty good quantity of them. I've walked out of key rooms with a whole stack of batteries, etc. So the things that do require batteries, like your shields, medium shields, and things like that, one key run is typically going to get you enough batteries to make a couple of shields. So very quick, easy way to get some batteries. It's also enough gun parts in almost every room for an upgrade, at least one singular upgrade for almost, any kind of gun really. So you'll do a key run and walk out with 3 to 4 heavy gun parts sometimes. Same with like medium gun parts, light gun parts, or you might end up with a bit of a variety of them. Like you'll typically walk out with 1 to 3 gun parts almost every single key that you do, so you can almost always guarantee that you can at least upgrade a gun once out of doing a key run. The other thing is that a key room will almost always have a blueprint in it. Unfortunately, it is kind of wild on variety and whatnot that you get. I've gone into key rooms and gotten the Bobcat blueprint. I've gone into key rooms and gotten the light stick blueprints. It's kind of, hit or miss. There's no rhyme or reason to what blueprints drop in those key rooms, unfortunately, but they will almost always have one. So if you're looking for blueprints, good place to check if you have a key laying around, is just to go to a key room. Another thing to note, they are a quick way to stockpile guns for upgrades or salvaging. Pretty much every key room is going to have a gun or two in it. I don't think I've done any of these runs where I didn't walk out with a key. The one that I may potentially have done would have been like Buried City Hospital or something like that. And even then I think I walked out with a Berletta. But it's almost always going to present you an opportunity to get some guns that you can decide on if you want to keep them, or if the durability is low or they're a tier 1 gun or whatever, you can salvage them. Whenever I go in there and it drops a Renegade, I'm almost always going to keep the Renegade. Renegades are a little expensive to craft, but they're one of the best guns for PvE stuff, so having a bunch of Renegades on hand is always super useful. So that's one thing to look forward to. Also, before the nerf, I know they just nerfed El Toros today, but there was also a really good way to get El Toros for some reason. A lot of El Toros tend to drop in key rooms. Another thing to note is Berlettas are honestly one of the most slept on PvP guns. There's tons of clips out there, people just absolutely dominating with them, but for some reason people don't run them. I think that's just because the Toro was so strong for so long that it was like, if you ran a Berletta and you face checked somebody with a Toro, you were still gonna die. So touching on one of the main complaints, topics, etc. that goes on with keys is that pink keys do seem to be worse than green keys all across the board, and that's been the way, or it's been that way since the game launched. It's still that way, unfortunately. Pretty much all of the pink keys that you get, aside from Buried City Town Hall, just really aren't worth running. As far as, or they're not worth being like overly excited about. It's not that they're not worth running, right? But a pink key is typically not much better than a blue key or a green key. They're all kind of the same in some kind of a way. There are some things to note. That Blue Gate Confiscation Room is notoriously terrible as far as what you're going to get out of it. The same goes for Salamantis Archives currently. I don't know what the deal is with those two keys. It's just like every time you go in there, you're only going to walk out with like 20,000 worth of stuff. And it's always going to be just like a random nonsense that you don't really need. If you go into Archives, there is typically more of a credit value, because you'll walk out with like film reels and, you know, the sellable stuff like ducks or you know, pictures, whatever. The stuff that you can sell that's, you know, not crafting supplies. One thing to note as far as keys are currently in the game, key runs just should only be used on your 2x events. So Hurricane, Night Raids, Electromagnetic Storm, Cold Snap, those events. You really shouldn't bother running a key on a day mode. Only because if you get like weapon crates and things like that, and those Night Raid and everything already has a modifier that increases the value of whatever drops out of gun crates and things like that. So you're doing yourself a disservice by running them on the day events, because you're not going to walk out with as high value weapons if you get weapon drops. That's pretty much the only major difference between running them on day or night. Occasionally there are more lockers and things like that spawn on day raids, but it doesn't really make up for, you know, the benefit of walking in there and coming out with a Bobcat 3 or Bobcat 2 or something like that. Another thing to note that people, I think, sleep on a little bit is that keys are more lucrative if you have Security Breach. I know Security Breach used to be super overpowered at the start of the game. Like, if you didn't have Security Breach, you were kind of cooked, and right early on in the game, a lot of people were just like running around and wishing they had spec'd into Security Breach when they didn't know that it was so overpowered at the start. And that was back before you could like reset your skill points and things like that. Security Breach now is way more in line with like the typical loot pool. A lot of people don't run it. A lot of people run stuff that's more focused on PvP and movement and things like that. But if you are a person that likes to do your key runs when you get a key, it's way more lucrative if you do have security breach. I would highly recommend going for security breach still. It's not nearly as good as it used to be, but if you're not really doing a lot of PvP, or you're not looking to like absolutely min-max your movement and everything like that, security breach is definitely one of the ways to increase how quickly you're going to stockpile stuff. Alright, and then one of the last things I want to touch on as well is that most key rooms have easy access to processors and sensors. Almost every key room has a server rack in it of some kind. Processors are useful for those augments or trigger grenades, things like that. Sensors are useful for your lure grenades, radar hatch keys, things along those lines. So if you do have keys, you need some processors, don't hesitate to go do them. It's a quick way to get an easy stack. If you have a bunch of keys sitting around, you can farm up processors in like 30 minutes. So easy way to do that. Just run a key, go do those. So anyway, like I've said, most of the value that you tend to get out of these is usually like 60,000. That's kind of like the average kind of run, but you're running anywhere from, 20 on the worst keys, like your Blue Gate key, all the way up to 150,000 if you get like a really good research and administration key or a spaceport trench tower key. The trench tower, is pretty underrated. It's definitely one of the best keys in the game, so I would highly recommend running it if you get one of the keys for that. So either way, I'm going to keep doing the key runs. I'm going to have a more like in-depth analysis video that comes out at the end of running all of these. I had 35 keys. I've gotten a couple while running the key rooms. Then I'm going to try to cut it off at like 30-ish or something like that to try to do this like deep dive into how the key rooms work and whatnot. In the meantime though, I am going to start having more variety to the videos because I don't think people just want to watch me go in there, loot, and leave. So I'm going to be trying to mix it up a little bit, do some things, play a little more normally, but with a focus on getting the key runs done for the remainder of these videos while I work on that project specifically. I will put out like one video where it's just exclusively about keys. So anyway, I appreciate anybody that's been watching. I hope you stick around, and I will see you around. Alright, Internet. I'll be signing off for this one. I appreciate you sticking around, and I'll see you in the next one.